round draft picks for him. Dude, when you take a first round draft pick, you only hope that he will turn into Khalil Mack. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. That's what happened. They got a first round draft pick. He turned into Khalil Mack, and then they got rid of him. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
That team.
Yeah, that's like huge money though. That's big time quarterback money.
Yeah.
For a linebacker who's not allowed to hit quarterbacks anymore.
Right. Yeah. Right. I mean, it's not like Mega Millions money. Like, it's not 1.6 billion.
Yeah.
With a B.
No.
I'm winning that. That's tonight.
Yeah.
That's tonight. I didn't even buy a ticket. That's how confident I was.
I bought one.
I bought 10 of them.
I played numbers.
Well, perfect.
I picked numbers now. Just go with it.
Yeah.
Stick to it. Trust the process, as Quaid says.
Yeah, dude.
All right, I'm hitting the intro.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Master Debate with Quaid. I am your host, Quaid McDade. Oh my goodness, I'm freaked out already. Tonight, we're going to talk about the top serial killers of all time. These are not fictional characters. These are not make-believe characters. These are the real deal. I'm not going to lie. I've already double-checked my door. It is definitely locked. My inside door, my entryway is also locked. I pulled all the curtains in the room that I'm sitting in. Not making that up. Nick, you sick son of a bitch. How are you doing?
I'm doing fan-fucking-tastic.
How excited are you for this topic? This is one that you and Adam both have been kind of, looking forward to getting close to Halloween. Are you excited about it?
Oh, I'm fucking thrilled, man. It's going to be awesome.
Adam, scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you that you haven't had a stroke yet?
I'd say I'm a solid 9 anyway. Have I not had a stroke? Not sure though. But
I guess I should phrase that as how excited are you to live through a stroke and still talk about the top serial killers of all time?
I'm feeling good, feeling healthy, feeling like an 80-year-old man, prime of my life.
Have you put some research and some effort into this topic?
Yeah, I kind of crammed a little bit. I was watching videos, and I mean, there's shit I've already seen, but I just refreshers and listening to a couple different podcasts. But yeah, I feel like my mind is warped right now. And I tell you what, you said, oh, you got your doors locked, your windows locked, you got the curtains drawn. You're gonna find out that none of that really matters. You're still dead man if they want you. Sorry, Quaid.
No, I know. The one thing I'm banking on is I think all of these, or at least I hope all of these people are dead and gone. That's my only relief in this topic. Nick, did you do a little prep work?
Oh yeah, absolutely. One the main podcast that I listen to is Last Podcast on the Left, and they cover a lot of serial killers, and so I just went back and did a little refresher, like Adam said, because I already knew of a lot of these guys, knew who I wanted on my list, and I feel I got a complete list of demented freaks.
I can tell you, and I texted you guys this just a little bit ago, an hour ago or so. I legitimately watched the first video of like serial killers that I've ever watched in my whole entire life. I was like, I'm just gonna kind of curious. I'll freshen up a little bit. I regret every moment of it. It's terrifying shit, dude. It's absolutely terrifying. And
These
it doesn't
are real life
necessarily
monsters.
matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what time of year it is. It just so happens to be close to Halloween, so it seems fitting. This topic is not fitting ever, as far as I'm concerned. So consider this your warning if you're listening and you don't like this shit. You get freaked out about stuff. I'm telling you right now, if you're listening, shit is going to get dark and twisted tonight. I guarantee that. I'm not excited about it, but unfortunately, I'm stuck here. I can't get away from it. So let's see. First off, go ahead and follow us, subscribe to us on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. Check out our website at kellydigitalpodcast.com. Adam is coming off of the win last week. So, Adam, I'm going to ask you to introduce your list of 10 serial killers to us first.
All right. I have Ed Kemper, David Berkowitz, Ed Gein, Richard Ramirez, Pedro Lopez, Luis Garavito, Jeffrey Dahmer, Glenn Rogers, Gary Ridgway, and Dennis Rader.
You know, something that I realized in a little bit of the stuff that I watched and read today about this topic, like the 70s and early 80s was a terribly twisted time period. It seems like there was an awful lot of this shit that took place in the late 60s to early 80s. Like within a 15-year period, a lot of this stuff took place. Like it was like a this new thing that everybody was like, oh, let's try it.
Yeah, that's a golden age of serial killing. Late 70s, early 80s. I mean, the cops are so caught off guard by it because they weren't used to this. I mean, yeah, sure, there's Jack the Ripper and this and that, from back in the day, but they didn't really have like a modern serial killer run around just killing people for, random people they didn't know, but killing and killing and killing. So it's crazy, really.
Yeah, it is crazy. Nick, let's hear your list of 10 in no particular order.
All right, I got the Golden State Killer, which the suspect in that case, they're the guy that they pegged in that case is still technically a suspect. He hasn't been convicted yet, so that's what he's known as. Carl Panzeram, Jack the Ripper, Quaid. What the hell is going on, man?
Dude, I'm telling you, it's not cool around
midget
here.
Under that table?
No, did you hear those noises?
Yeah.
Yeah, not cool. That's why I lock my doors.
All right, I got Jack the
That's
Ripper.
my damn dog. It's my damn dog. She's playing with a milk jug.
The liquor. Okay, so Jack the Ripper, Jerry Brudos, Ted Bundy, Dennis Nielsen, John Wayne Gacy, Robert Pickton, H.H. Holmes, and the most sick and twisted fuck on the face that's ever been on the planet, Albert Fish.
Okay, so we have 0 matches. Is that true?
Yeah.
There's so many serial killers. I mean, there's so many. You could have made a list of 50 apiece.
Oh, yeah,
well,
easily.
You guys could have made a list of 50 of these. I could not have. I was actually hoping we'd have like 8 or 10 matches and we'd like talk about them all briefly and be like, well, yep, there's our list. No need to debate. We'll see you guys next week, and we're going to talk about the best cartoons ever.
Guess what, Quaid? Next week is October 30th. So we still got one more Halloween episode to do.
Yeah, maybe. Depends on how tonight goes for me personally. You guys might need a new host for next week, depending on how this plays out. So, Adam, you are going to have the opportunity to either present one first or you want to defer and let Nick present one first.
It's hard for me to even pick one. These guys are so disgusting. But I will let Nick go first.
Oh,
All right, Nick. Go easy, man. Go easy. Let's hear it.
I will go with Dennis Nilsson. He is known as the London Dahmer. This dude he's a bit of a loner. He is a product killer. He's not a process killer. The difference is a product killer, they kill for they get the kill out of the way so that they could have their prize. And the prize to Dennis Nilsson was the body. And what Dennis Nilsson liked to do was keep the body around for a while so he could wash it, tend to it, talk to it, and jerk off to it. He loved to do that. Sometimes he would just lay there with the body. And then when it came to disposal of the body, that's when things got a little twisted. One of the things he would do is he would break up all the bones and cut all the parts. And he would go down, and he lived in an apartment building that had a bit of a yard. And he would have a bonfire with the parts of his victims, the ones that were in his room for too long and started to stink. So he'd sit there all day just roasting his victims, burning them all down to ash. And what's creepy is the neighborhood kids would they would all like dance around the fire and come play because to them, because they're normal thinking, they think, oh, hey, a bonfire, and there's our neighbor Dennis. Let's go play by the bonfire. And he's just sitting there, poking the fire, keeping it going. Kids are having a good time, probably roasting marshmallows. And, it's just another day in foggy old London. Another disposal method this guy had was he would chop them up into small parts and flush them down the toilet, which is actually one of the things that led to him being caught. So, yes, he would actually flush his victims down the shitter, which I don't want to say is funny, but it's kind of funny. It's terrible for the victims, but it's kind of funny. His body count is 12, which is respectable in the serial killer realm. And I believe he is still alive today. So, no, he died. Oh, we just lost him not too long ago, May 12th, 2018.
Oh, rest in peace, Dennis. Now, real quick question. What is it exactly that you find funny about him flushing their remains down the shitter?
That's how I would want to go.
For real?
Flush me down the toilet. He's like a goldfish.
Yeah, I think wasn't he the one where they found when they were investigating, they found human remains in the sewer system, which led to his arrest.
And like what happened was like they weren't quite sure if it was human remains or chicken bones. So he actually dug down there, opened the pipe up, scooped out what he could, and stuffed chicken bones in there to try to throw him off. But like
That's
once
brilliant.
that didn't work, he was like, yeah, all right, I did it.
Jeez. Okay, Adam, what do you have to go up against the shitter killer?
I should do the real Jeffrey Dahmer or the real Dahmer, but I won't because they're so similar. I mean, just the way you described the way they dispose of the bodies and some of the things, but I won't go head to head with your Dahmer, with the real Dahmer. But one guy, whenever you're in the United States, you kind of think about serial killers, local, domestic serial killers. I mean, at least that's what, if you're just scratching the surface of serial killer interest, but once you dig into it, you start to realize there's some guys around the world who are really sick individuals, and Nick has some on his list. So one I would like to talk about, his name's Pedro Lopez. He's someone that a lot of people have never heard of, at least in the United States, but he was basically from Ecuador. He was the Ecuador, Colombia, Peru area. He kind of roamed around in South America there. And basically what was going on was these girls were just missing, like in droves, like dozens and dozens of girls missing. And they just thought the girls ran away. The police really didn't investigate it because this guy targeted poor girls, like, just the country, I think of Colombia, where he did a lot of his killing, had just come out of like a civil war, and people were really, there was a lot of poor people. So he went out and he was killing girls, and the ages were 8 to 12 was pretty much what he was into. And he did it for pretty much a sexual thing. When he was a kid, he was molested. He like ran away, lived on the streets from the age of like 8 on, and he was raped by dudes. He was put in prison, raped in prison. When he was in prison the first time, he was raped. And that's when he said, "I'll never be the victim again." And he went and he killed all the guys who raped him whenever he was in prison. And the warden said, "It's self-defense, no big deal." So he served his time for like stealing a car or something. They let him out. He's like 21 or 22 years old. And he just decided that he's going to retaliate on the world. And his thing was young girls. And he went around and he would lure these girls. He would dress up like a priest. He would dress up like a salesman. He had like all these characters, like essentially mostly priests though. And he would lure these girls away from their families or wherever they were. And he would take them out in the middle of nowhere, and he would murder them, and he would leave them. But he would basically murder them and put them in, like, some of them in like mass graves, like just piling them up. And then he would move on to a new town, and he was doing it. And these girls were like missing, and no one really had any explanation for it. Long story short, the guy ended up getting caught. So he goes and he's in Colombia. So he is kind of a crazy guy. So he basically, once they catch him, he admits to it. He takes them to like 50 some bodies, like right there, that all these mass graves. So Colombia has this law, or I'm sorry, this was where he got caught was Peru. I'm sorry. He ended up going to Colombia, but Peru has a law that if you murder someone, or if you murder 100 people, you can't be sentenced to more than like, it's basically the same. Like if you kill 100 people or you kill one, you get the same sentence. So he killed 57 admitted, people that they found and were able to prove. And he got 16 years in jail. Okay.
Wow.
Did you say 16? Like 1-6?
16. So the guy killed 57. I mean, he basically was found guilty of killing 57 girls. Okay. He gets a sentence of 16, gets out in 14 on good behavior. Then, okay, so Colombia wants him, or Ecuador, one or the other. I can't really remember. One of the other country where he was killing tons of people wants him. So they bring him to their country. They say he seems like a crazy person, so they put him in an insane asylum, and like they hold him for like 2 years. Then they let him go. This motherfucker killed over 350 people, and he's still alive and free. Yeah, and there's
He's
girls
still alive now.
Yeah, whenever he got out of jail, he was only 41 years old. He was a young guy. And and now they're finding girls like start disappearing in the same thing and finding bodies, and they think he's killing again. But he lives in like the jungle now, so no one can find him. Like no one like is finding him. He's just running around like he literally got out in Colombia out of the mental institute on a $50 bail and just walked into the jungle and disappeared. $50.
Dude, that's terrifying. That's terrifying that this guy's still alive.
Yeah.
So, go ahead, Nick. What are you saying?
I got to argue against that. Look, I never heard of this guy, and I find the case very, very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to ask Adam a couple questions. One, what was his method of killing, and was it more of like a process or a product? Like, did he just like after the deed was done, did he just dispose of the body, or did he do weird shit?
Okay, he did weird shit. Okay.
Oh, he did weird shit afterwards? Because, like, where I'm going to argue for Dennis Nilsen is, yeah, his body count's obviously not as high as Lupe, whatever his name is. But this dude was a extremely deranged human being, to where, like, he would strangle his victims and, you know, make sure he kept the body intact. And then, like, he would keep them hidden in a closet, and to make sure, you know, when they started getting a little funky, he'd throw like deodorant sticks on them. And then when he'd come home, he'd pull them out, and he'd paint their faces up and paint his faces up and listen to weird like prog rock shit and just get like all kinds of freaky. This dude was weird. So, like, the dementedness of Dennis Nilsen, as opposed, I don't know. I don't know how to compare to Lupe.
Well, okay.
But the dementedness of this guy was just, I don't know. I think it's
okay. So
Let
Adam,
me tell you how he did
what
it.
were some of the ways that Pedro would kill his victims?
So Pedro, he would take these girls. Okay, he would convince them he never like grabbed a girl off the street and took her. He convinced them to go with him, and then once he had them somewhere private, he would start to beat them and torture them, and he would even sleep with them all night long, rape them and sleep with them all night long, and then in the morning he'd rape them again, and then he would start to strangle them, and then he would basically just throw them into a pile of leaves, and literally go on. Like, there was times when he was killing 2 people a day. Like, there were days where he was like taking 2 girls. There were times whenever he'd kill one, get up, go and kill another one. I mean, this guy was like a lion feeding on like baby sheep. That's basically what he was like. I mean, 350 is what they believe they can equate to him. But in reality, the guy was in 3 different countries, moving around to all these towns. I mean, he could have killed even more than that. So, I mean, to me, I understand what you're saying. The guy was like having sex with dead people or jerking off on whatever. And I mean, I have guys like that too, and they're sickos. But geez, 350 8 to 12-year-old girls. I mean, that's a fucking generation of kids. I mean, it's like a genocide.
Yeah. Okay. So Nick, so that number of 300 to 350 is staggering to me. I'm going to have a hard time getting past that. Get me past it.
I can't, especially considering they're kids. There's nothing to say.
I mean, it's disturbing. Okay. That's why
Adam,
the guy
you win this round. That is horrifying. Absolutely horrifying. I was actually, and while you were talking, I was fact checking. Well, I was Google checking. That's my fact checking. Mm-hmm. That stuff's like, those are like accurate numbers according to stuff that I was looking at. That's absolutely horrifying. Absolutely horrifying.
They called him the monster of the Andes. And I mean, that's the type of person that those urban legends, like, people tell their generations of kids about, like, you got to watch because girls go missing. Like, they tell people for 50 years, they'll probably tell people. And then the guy is free. He's somewhere, he's free. He's not in jail. It's crazy. Kind of laws they have.
You know what's really crazy to me is, all of that is crazy. I can't believe that nobody would have killed him by now. Like one of the kids' family members or somebody, or even just a good Samaritan.
Okay, they took the guy out because he had to show them where all these graves were. They would take him out dressed as a police officer because everyone wanted to kill him. Like, everyone in the country wanted to kill him. So, I mean, he had like really bad, like, I mean, so basically, they all wanted to kill him. It's crazy that they didn't, but they protected him whenever they were trying to find all these bodies. Even the police said, I would have liked to kill him, but I wanted to find as many bodies as I could to give people some closure. But he basically had some real serious issues with, obviously he grew up on the streets from 8 years old on. So he had like abandonment issues. He was, hated his mother, basically. He got out of jail and out of the mental institute. The only place he stopped was at his mother's house. And he said, "Mother, kneel down in front of me." And she's like, give me a break. You're like a complete shame. You should be kneeling down in front of me. He's like, well, I want my inheritance. She's like a super poor lady living in and all she had was a chair and a bed. And he said, give me your chair and your bed. Took it. He sold it to like a neighbor, took the money, and just walked away. I mean, he's a son of a bitch. He's a terrible person.
Well, that was kind of a baller move on his part.
How can you do it to your mom? It's terrible.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
he has two things going for him. A, he killed all the dudes that raped him, and B, like he definitely bowed up on his mom.
Yeah, he didn't take any. That
is true that he. So you did say that, Adam, right? He killed all the guys that raped him along the way.
He was only in jail for. He went to jail. I think he was 19 or 21. I can't remember if whatever it was. He stole a car, got caught, and they put him in jail. He was there for 2 days. This is how bad the prisons were, and he got raped by a bunch of dudes. And he made a knife out of like something, and just killed all of them. And you know, that's like he killed all these girls, but living on the streets, how many people did he kill like before he really got into this? Because he was obviously killing people. You know, he's a fucking murderer. So
yeah, wow.
Shocking.
Well, not to take anything away from Dennis Nelson for being a completely sick and twisted guy, Nick.
Yeah,
I mean,
fuck that guy.
You did a great job, but this Pedro Lopez character, holy shit! All right, Adam, you're up first on round 2. Who do you got?
Round 2 here. Well, I'm gonna do my favorite guy. I mean,
your favorite guy? There should not be on this list.
Guy. He's my favorite serial killer, and not because I think he's a good guy, not because he's anything. Not like I like the guy. I'm just saying, as far as serial killers, and you want to make the profile of a serial killer, and how basically a profile for a serial killer really probably came to was Dennis Rader. And basically Dennis Rader, the thing that makes him so fascinating to me was whenever he was caught and he went to court, he pled guilty. They had evidence on him. He pled guilty. And the judge, he didn't just show up and say, I plead guilty, put me in jail. The judge, as part of his guilty plea, made him go through every single murder and basically tell all the details of how he did it, how he planned it, everything. And this guy was, Nick wants to talk about these different types of serial killers. Basically, like, he lived a double life. He was married, had a wife and children. He was, whenever he first started all this, basically he worked for ADT, security systems, putting in security systems. Okay. So that's scary, because when you think about that guy knows how to get into your house, even if you have a security system, because the motherfucker put it there. And people said afterwards, they're like, this guy's like laughing. He's putting in security systems. The whole area of Wichita, Kansas is like under panic for 30 years. He was running around, and they're putting in security systems to hide from him. And this motherfucker's the guy doing it. So anyways, I'll get to kind of what he did and the reason why. And I guess the reason why I think he's so interesting is because when he's in court, he sits there and he breaks down every single person he killed, every event, how it led up to it, what he did. And I just think to have that on video record is like a real case, what do they call it? Case file or whatever on what a serial killer is. So you're in Wichita, Kansas, 1974. And the first people that get killed, he was stalk. So he has these are what he calls projects. Okay. Like he says this is a person is a project to him. And he basically searches around. He calls it trolling. He finds somebody, he keys in on him. He calls it phase 2, stalking. Now this is his project. So he starts stalking them. He finds out when they leave their house, where they work, what they do, like who they hang out with. And so the first people, and he made not a huge mistake, but it was for all of this planning, it kind of backfired really. Okay, he was watching a woman. He was gonna kill her. Okay, and she was married, had 2 kids. I don't know if you guys can hear me because am I breaking up at all?
No, you're good.
Okay. So basically, she was married, 2 kids, and her husband every day he would leave, and she would, and he would take the kids to school, and basically she would be there alone. That was his plan. I'm going to go in, but this guy had wrecked his car, the husband, like a day before. It was in the shop. He couldn't go to work that day, so he's home, and her car's there. So he's like, "Oh, his car's gone. Her car's there. She's alone." Well, he goes in. The husband's there, 2 kids, and the wife. So he always has this story. He says, "All right, I'm an escaped convict, okay, and I want to tie you up. I'm just gonna take some money, get some food, warm up, and I'm gonna take your car and I'm gonna run away." So they're like, "Okay, that's fine." So he gets them tied up, and then he's like, "Got him." So he starts strangling them. He does it one by one, right in front of each other. He strangles the dad. He strangles the mom. He strangles the little son, basically a young son. Then the dad starts coming to. He puts a bag over his head. I mean, he goes into detail about how he's doing this. He puts a bag over his head because, obviously he hadn't ever strangled anyone. And he had been didn't really know how much effort it took. So he strangles him. Then he strangles the wife again. Then, the kid's waking up, he strangles him again. So he gets done. Finally, all 3 of them are dead. He takes the daughter, who's I think 8 or 10 years old, downstairs, hangs her up in the basement while she's alive, basically hangs her to death, and jerks off on her. Okay, so I don't think it's funny. I mean, it's just disgusting.
Yeah.
When you think about someone coming in your house and he had this line and he tricks you. Because if someone comes in with a gun, because he would bring a gun in, but he had what he called a hit kit. So he had a whole kit of rope, different ties and bags. He figured all this stuff out. But this is his very first people he killed, and he killed a whole family. So anyways, over the years, he's not this guy who just is killing and killing and killing. Most of his time is spent stalking and stalking and stalking. The funny thing about him is they arrested another guy for killing that entire family.
No
when he
shit.
saw, and when he saw that, he wrote a letter to police and he said, "I'm the one who did it. This is exactly how I did it. These are he gave intimate details about the bodies and how they were laid out." He said, and he didn't do it because he was worried about this guy going to jail for a crime he didn't do. He did it because he didn't want anyone else to get the credit for all of his hard work. And this is a pattern that repeats itself. Not so much they're getting arrested, but whenever he would kill people, he started calling the police. He said, basically, he just taunted them. And when he was taunting them, in the very first letter he wrote, "I bind them, I torture them, and I kill them." And he would sign every letter BTK. And he's the BTK killer. So, I mean, I could go on and on about the guy. I mean, some of the sick things about it. The thing that is so sick about him is the fact that he runs around following these people. He's just following people around. And it wasn't like he had one person, and then he ended up killing them. He had a bunch of people that he was stalking for a year. And then he would take an opportunity and he would kill them. This is the guy who we said, how we have the killer who wrote the blood in the wall? He's the one who hid in the woman's room and house. And for some reason, I don't know if she hooked up with some guy or what, but she didn't come home that night. She always did. And he's the one who wrote in lipstick on her mirror, basically, "You're lucky you didn't come home," and signed it the BTK killer. This is whenever he was out, what people were aware of him. So, I mean, it's just crazy. I mean, I could get into a little kind of give his, but I mean, it's scary to have people running around in this world stalking people the way he's stalking them. So
Right.
That's super creepy to me. I was thinking about a person coming in your house. Your house is a sacred area to you and your family. Do you know what I'm saying? Like to have a desire to be inside of somebody else's unwelcomed and unknown is totally terrifying to me.
Yeah.
Nick, what do you got to go up against the BTK killer?
All right. So BTK killer is a sick and twisted individual, obviously. And he's more of a process killer, like Adam was saying. He enjoyed the kill. I'm going to put up another product killer. And what I think is okay, I don't want to say great, but impressive about this guy is the ingenuity of it. The original OG serial killer in this country, H.H. Holmes. He was he was a med student. I think he was actually a doctor. He went through med school, University of Michigan, I believe, and he was also a shyster. He's a bit of a con man. He owned a pharmacy, which was all bullshit and stuff. But he didn't really enjoy the kill so much. And it's not that I don't want to say didn't do anything freaky with the bodies, but like he saw everything as a con to where he would kill his victims. He would boil all the flesh off of them. And then he would sell the skeletons to universities around the country. And that's how he would like make his bones. Like back in that time, this is around the turn of the 19th century. I think it was like 1880s to 1900s. Universities needed skeletons. They needed real skeletons, and like a black market thing that was going on was grave robbing. So, and they knew this was something that was going on, but they still wanted the skeletons. Now, H.H. Holmes, instead of grave robbing, he just killed people. Then he would boil all the flesh off, take all the flesh off, and he'd sell the skeleton. And he was also a doctor, so he was able to, cut the bigger stuff off. But when I talk about the ingenuity, the World Fair came to Chicago in it was like 1892 or 1893. It actually came. The World Fair came to Chicago. So in 1892, H.H. Holmes started construction on a hotel that would be right outside the World Fair. And on the third floor of this hotel, the rooms were designed to be literal gas chambers. Like he would kill people in the rooms, and they were equipped with chutes to just shoot the body down into the basement, where he had an incinerator in place where he could carve
like a laundry chute.
Yeah, like a laundry chute where he could carve all the meat off the bones, throw the meat into the incinerators, sell the skeletons. This dude literally built a hotel that was designed to specifically murder people. And the way he got away with this was he kept on hiring new contractors and firing the old ones so that they would get to like a certain point in the process, and then before they could get to the point where they're like, wait a minute, why are we piping a gas line into here and leaving it open? They're fired. So nobody asked questions. The reason why the hotel shut down was because a lot of these contractors came back looking for their money. Now, one of the crazier stories with H.H. Holmes is he had an associate a little further on down the road named Benjamin Pitzel. And him and Pitzel came up with the plan they were going to fake Pitzel's death, and they were going to collect the insurance money. And then they were going to split it. The insurance was going to be $10,000. They'd split it 50-50. Well, H.H. Holmes not wanting to share the money. He went ahead and actually killed Pitzel. So it wasn't much of a fake. And then he convinced Pitzel's wife to let their kids, Pitzel and Pitzel's wife's kids, travel with H.H. Holmes to Toronto, in which he picked them off one by one. The kids. This H.H. Holmes is he has like 27 confirmed kills, I believe, and some believe the number could be as high as 200, mainly because of the hotel in outside the World Fair in Chicago. And another fun fact about H.H. Holmes is he is one of the many suspects that could possibly be Jack the Ripper, because the timelines fit as to when because he was in the Whitechapel area at the same time as the Ripper killings. So, and he also had a medical background. So that kind of, and he was obviously also a psycho. So it fits up pretty good. But yeah, I think his ingenuity and his resourcefulness as far as like making money off of his murders by selling skeletons makes him a more interesting serial killer than BTK.
So this dude definitely went to great lengths to make this happen, building a hotel and designing it specifically for murdering people. You have to wonder, I find myself wondering, was he doing it? I mean, I assume there was probably a significant amount of money at that time in the idea of him selling the skeletons to universities. I wonder if there was any financial part of it that he was caught up on, or if that was just a small piece of the puzzle, like if it was just something he got off on. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I think he enjoyed it, but he was definitely driven by money greatly. I mean, it wasn't just there was murder, there was insurance fraud. A lot of his murders that if it wasn't selling the skeleton, it was to collect insurance money on. Like I said, he's a product killer. He doesn't really care too much about the kill. That's why he would gas people, or like one of his ex-wives, I think he just let suffocate in a vase or in a safe. He didn't. The kill wasn't his thing as much as how he could turn the kill into a profit.
It was like having a trophy.
Yeah.
Adam, why is Dennis Rader more horrifying than H.H.? What's his face?
So when Dennis Rader evolves, like after he's killing some people and he's doing his thing, and he evolves as a person, the guy is a Boy Scout leader. He is the president of his church, and as a Boy Scout, or they go on these little outings. Okay, he goes out. They're camping out. One of these outings. I don't know. I wasn't in the Boy Scouts. I mean, the guy knows how to tie knots though, so he's probably pretty helpful for the kids. But everyone goes to sleep. He sneaks out and kills a woman, and he did this a couple times during the night. When everyone's sleeping, goes out and kills one of his targets. He takes her body to his church, where she's dead. He binds her and basically puts her in all these different positions and takes pictures of her. So I mean, like, he has this really huge bondage fetish for bondage, like to the point where he even ties himself up. It gets him going. He puts on like women's panties, ties himself up. He's actually choked himself, just to experience it.
Wait,
to the
quick
point.
question. Is all of this stuff weird?
Yeah. You gotta have a spotter, Nick. So he almost killed himself 2 times, he said, from doing this. So anyway, so he's like the most run of the mill. He's a figure in your community. He ends up becoming a compliance officer. Later on, because this went on from 1984, or 1974 until he wasn't arrested until 2005. So he gets later on in life, he gets a job as a compliance officer, and he actually kind of goes on a lull from killing, but it's because he has this power that he has to display over people. And one of the ways he does this is he's actually responsible for catching dogs. And whenever he has a target woman, like these women, because he must hate them, and they have a dog, he would go and he would basically jump over the fence if the dog was in the backyard and the woman wasn't home, take the dog and have it euthanized, and then tell the woman, yeah, the dog was out, we had to put it down. And he would do this and he would love telling these women this,
All right.
just to torture them. I'm not kidding, Nick.
He's telling the dog story because he knows you have a dog and you love your dog.
Not necessarily. I think that says a lot about someone. Like, I think he liked, not only did he like to kill people and strangle them with his bare hands, but he liked to see them being tortured.
Right.
He liked this any way he could. That's why he keeps calling the police. So let me
I think that shows that he liked the hunt.
Oh yeah, he liked the hunt, but he would strangle people over and over because he got such sexual gratification out of seeing people like dying. And like he would strangle you, then resuscitate you, then strangle you and like resuscitate you. So let me just tell you how he got caught, because this is kind of funny. So he's primarily killing people early on, like 70s, 80s. He's had these long stretches where he's just he's just stalking people, or he's got this other job that keeps him busy, like destroying people's lives in other ways, I guess. But he always wrote letters, and he wrote them to the police. So someone wrote a book or a news story about the BTK killer must be dead because he hasn't killed anyone for a while and no one's heard from him. So just to taunt them, he writes in to the police and he sends them pictures and articles, because he always took things off of these victims like that he kept. And he sent them in and just said, yeah, I'm not dead. I'm still here. Like, I will never stop killing. And so they start getting in this communications between the two of them. Like, he's like, I think it was something in the newspaper. Like, they had a way of working out a way for the police to communicate back to him. So he said, I have more evidence, more things I want to share. And it was pictures of all these women that he had killed. Like, he was taking pictures of them in bondage situations and dead. And he's like, can I send it on a floppy disk? And they're like, or he said, can it be traced if I send on a floppy disk? And they put in the paper, like, the code, and they said, no, it's safe. So he sends it. They check it, and there's even back then there's like metadata on all this stuff, and it was basically saved from a computer at this church, and it was by D. Rader. And then they looked like on their website, and the president of the church is Dennis Rader. The president of this, like, it was like something Methodist church, was literally, that's how he got caught. I mean, that's great. I love that.
for as smart, I shouldn't say smart, but for as smart as he was in getting away with it for all those years, what an idiot.
Well,
you hear people talk about it all the time. Yeah, technology caught up with them, but you hear people talk about stuff like that at some point people in some weird way want to get caught and they want the recognition for it. You can't help but think that's a perfect example of it.
He was a prime example because he never wanted anybody, like Adam said, he never wanted anybody getting credit for his kills. He is a narcissist. He's a textbook.
Exactly. Yeah, he is. He was. That's what they even said. He's a totally narcissistic. He thinks very highly of himself. But to everyone in his life, they didn't know this. It was just like, oh no, Dennis, he's just real quiet. He's like, people said, yeah, I've known him, been friends with him like his whole life. Never once saw him laugh. He's just like, just a regular boring guy, he never does anything. And I don't know. I think the reason why he's so fascinating is because he tortured people and killed them, but he also tortured them with fear. Like, this whole community was in fear for 74 to 2031 years from whenever he started killing people. And it's like, I don't know, he's another one. He's like, these are the type of people. And I mean, same with your guy. I mean, look, all these guys are terrible people. And they all did horrific things. I mean, you think about a person that killed one person. That's horrific. These people on our list have killed multiple people. And they've done things for their own sexual desires. I mean, it's so fucked up. They're so fucked up. I mean, it's true. You can't like deny that any of them are really, not good, or just lousy or boring. They're all disgusting.
So something that's interesting. Go ahead, Nick.
I said I agree. They are all horrible people. One thing Adam brought up was like the nice guy image that Dennis Rader put forward. H.H. Holmes kind of did the same. I mean, he owned a local pharmacy. People trusted him to fill their prescriptions and give them medicine to heal. And he also was known as quite the ladies' man. I mean, he had multiple wives, killed a lot of them, and but still, that didn't stop him from finding love again later. And people like.
So, so this is what I need to say about these two. First off, they're both horrifying and terrifying people. I don't like to even think about either one of them. It's hard for me to talk about them. I'm gonna make my decision in this round based off of one or two things. First off, one of these people lived in a time period where it was much more difficult to get away with it. And also, one of these people did it over such an incredibly extended period of time.
Well,
So,
if you're based on that, the BTK killer stopped killing. I mean, he only killed for a certain period of time. Now, people were afraid of him.
I mean, he actually killed, I think, for over 20 years. Like, actually killing over a span of like 20-some years. I mean, it wasn't like, yeah, over the last couple years he didn't kill, but he taunted people with the police. But he did. It wasn't like, oh, he killed for like a week and a half and quit. Even a couple years. I mean, it was 1974 to like 1995 or 6 or something like that, and then he kind of went on this lull, and then he started taunting people again in like 2003. But he acted like he was gonna do it, and he actually had people at the time that he was in the stalking phase with, so he was still gonna do it basically. But yeah, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Like, he's not like, he's an oddball, like, as far as killers go, because he like has these other things, that the hunt, like you said, gets him going. He doesn't just go on a mass murder. He's not like Lopez, where he's killing multiple people a day, like just on a. But this guy, every person he kills, like, it's like he has a death wish on them. Like, he has planned this for years, So
All
yeah.
right.
So
Wait, before you make your decision, I want you to picture this.
oh, I don't like to picture anything when it talks about these people.
Okay, you're getting ready to go to Tortuga, all right? Because I'm trying to think of what festival will get you to go somewhere.
I'm
So
coming
you're-
back down this year, by the way. We'll talk about that later.
All right, but you're getting ready to go to Tortuga, and say your little motorhome has a bit of a technical issue, goes out. So you're like, well, fuck it, I want to cancel my trip. I'm going to rent a hotel. Or rent a hotel room. So like you come down, get a hotel room. You go in your hotel room and you're getting ready to go watch Kenny Chesney or whoever's there. Then all of a sudden, like, you go to walk out and the door's locked. And you're like, what the fuck? Door's locked. And then all of a sudden, you just see gas start coming out of a fucking pipe. And you're in a gas chamber. This dude's going to gas you. He's going to send you down a chute. He's going to carve every ounce of meat off of your bones, throw it in an incinerator, and sell your skeleton to Edinburgh University.
Now, it's terrifying. I'm not going to sit here and try to say that either one of these stories is not completely terrifying and freaks me out. But I will say this. One of them is more intriguing to me than the other. They're both intriguing. But this might not be fair to do to you, Nick. But because the BTK killer is more modern, it has more of a real feel and a real fear to me. So I have to pick BTK killer, Dennis Rader, and Adam for this round.
The thing about H.H. Holmes, I mean, like, I feel like he did it as like a business. Like, I mean, he must have. I mean, there's other people around that time frame. There was a woman, I forget her name. She's like Norwegian, and she would put ads in newspapers Like this is like, early 1900s, maybe late 1800s. And she said, I'm a single woman, widow, or single woman, however she started pitching it. And they were like wanted ads. And she lives in Wisconsin. She said, I have a farm. Just, this is my contact. This is my address. Send me letters. She would start communicating with these guys. And she'd say, look, get all your money together. You come down here, live with me, and let's make the marriage out of it. They'd come down. And she would kill them, take all their money. And I mean, she did it for years. Gail or something Gunderson. And I mean, it's just like people back then just like killed people.
For money. That was like the original Black Widow.
Yeah, basically. Sorry, but that's just like another weird story from that time frame. Kind of like.
Yeah, I think for me too, something that came into play with my decision on that one, Nick, and I hate to do that because it's not any more or less terrifying than yours, but it just, to me, it seemed like back then in my mind, it was just so much easier to get away with things in the 1800s or early 1900s compared to the late 1900s and even the early 2000s. I mean, think about the technological advances to still get away with it for the amount of time. That's what I couldn't get past.
But I agree with that. But the dude built a fucking hotel.
Without doubt, your guy went to greater lengths.
I mean, it's just like
what he did.
Like the fact that, like, it's easy to get away with just like murdering the random guy on the street. But the dude built the hotel with built-in gas chambers and still didn't get caught. Like,
I'll say this guy, though, Quaid, my guy, still alive.
That is terrifying. But see, that's what gets me.
Yeah, I'll go back to my point. All these guys are sickos. H.H.Holmes is sicko. I mean, I look at Nick's list. I know all of them, and they're all sickos. My list is a bunch of sickos. They're all fucked up. I mean, really, I think if it comes down to is the fact that this fucking guy's coming around stalking people and hunting them down for years. And like, you could have been one of those people. I mean, if you're a woman, if you're a guy,
or you could be
long hair. You might mistake you.
So the BTK killer only killed women. I wasn't aware of that.
Well, no,
I mean, it doesn't have any impact on my decision, but
no, I mean, he killed. Like he had a couple situations where, like the first one where the husband was there, he killed him. He killed the little boy. And actually, he's kind of like a pedophile, too. Like, they don't ever really talk about that. But he was like, why did he save that little girl? And just for that was his final
like his own sexual pleasure. Yeah. Something that's terrifying about both of these ones that you just got done talking about is that they were both like respectable people within the community, like on a very, very high level.
You'll find that a lot with serial killers.
Creepy double lives. Yeah.
Yep.
It is creepy. Hey, I got to take a piss. Why don't you guys talk about your own creepy fetishes? I'm going to take a piss real quick.
All right.
It's
Quaid's a serial killer. He seems like a guy that would take a little boy out to the woods, stick his pecker in him, and then slit his throat.
I don't know. Quaid's such a pussy. He looks so like the last show, especially. Like when we were telling this, they're not even true stories. I mean, some of them maybe loosely based off
campfire ghost stories, basically. He's
like ready to piss his pants. This shit. Like honestly, like it's funny. I was talking to this girl at work, and I said, "Oh, I'm heading to this guy's house today." And I said, hopefully he doesn't serial kill me. I've never met him before. I go to new people's houses every day. Yeah. And like all it would take is me to go up to that one of these guys' houses. I mean,
house,
there's probably 200-300 of these guys active in this country right now. And all I have to do is show up at the wrong guy's house. And I said, I'm gonna text you, I'm texting you now. I'm going in. I'll text you when I'm done. Like, just so you know I'm alive.
Yeah.
And I was like, I guess maybe the thrill of like knowing about serial killers, but it's also like making myself aware of like, because it's a real threat for me.
Yeah, always be on guard.
Yeah.
Does this topic like, serial killers in general, does this actually freak you guys out, or are you just numb to it? Serious question.
Do it at this point, to be honest with you.
I mean, to me, I'm not saying it freaks me out, and I'm not saying it freaks me out to the point where I can't listen to it. It freaks me out to the point where I want to know as much as I possibly can, because that's what I was just telling Nick. There's probably 200-300 of these guys operating in this country right now, and
I don't want to talk about that.
Exactly, and I want to know how the hell it's happening. I would like to know the current ones, because they used to tell you, "Oh, there's a serial killer like operating in this area." They don't tell you that anymore. They don't incite panic in the public anymore.
I am fascinated by serial killers more than I am freaked out by them. I don't know why. I mean, you should be freaked out by them. They're horrible people. They're monsters, and they will, some of them will do really weird shit to you. But
it is. I kind of see what you're saying, and it sounds awful the way you just tried to say it, but I do kind of get it. It's like there's something. It's so far out of the ordinary. There is something super interesting about it, and it freaks me out a lot. But it is also super interesting, like the psyche of these people, like what leads a person to do these things. That's why I think part of my decision on the last one with Dennis Rader for you, Adam, was you talking about, wasn't it him where the judge made him describe, you were saying made him describe the process of killing him. Like that's almost like us or anybody else being interested in the psyche. They're actually trying to document it, because how many chances do you get to do that?
Exactly. Well, like you'll see, like if you ever want to watch it, it's on YouTube. You could watch it. The guy is very matter of fact. He's like, you could tell he's a very detail oriented guy, and he tries to explain it to the best of his ability, and he's trying to like be as clear and upfront as possible. The guy obviously is crazy. I'm not crazy. He's obviously different from us. He doesn't have that emotion where he feels bad for killing, like slaughtering.
It would just be like us talking about our day at work or something.
Basically, yeah. That's and honestly, you listen to him talking, it's like, wow. Like, I don't want to ruin it for everybody. What's that TV show, Nick? I always forget the name of it. About the
Mind Hunters.
Yeah, Mind Hunter. So this is what a fucking weirdo I am that I know this. So Mind Hunter is a show about the FBI. Early on, FBI, how they developed like the background to figure out that serial killers were like a thing. And they show a guy, and the first thing they go through serial killers, like actual stories of serial killers or people who they believe to be like mass killers. That's the show. It's not a it's loosely based on some real people, but then they pop up, like they'll show like other people in other cities, like kind of lead up to like what's happening. The whole first season is them leading up to this guy. In the first episode, they show Wichita, Kansas, and they show like 30 seconds of him, like at his job. I'm like, that's BTK. It could have said "wh," and I would have knew it was BTK. Like I'm ruining the surprise for everybody, but it's based like this guy is the epitome of a serial killer.
Yeah,
I mean,
what is the YouTube video or show that you said is on?
That show is on Netflix. That's Mind Hunter on Netflix.
Yeah, but no. Before that, didn't you say there's something on YouTube about BTK?
Yeah, you could watch a documentary on him, and you could also watch the entire courtroom, like where he's describing to the entire courtroom and the judge about each individual person.
Oh, for real? That's on YouTube?
Yeah, it's on YouTube.
It should not be.
That's the reason why he's such an interesting study for me, because that's him. That's the guy. He's not hiding behind something. He's not trying to like get off a death row. He's got sentenced to life. He's not even getting the death penalty. So I mean, he's just like, okay, I'll tell you what happened. And you can
Here's what has me really freaked out right now, dude, is that for some weird, strange reason, I want to watch that. I'm not going to watch it tonight. I'm going to watch it during the daytime for sure. But I want to watch it. Have you seen it, Nick?
I have not. I will have to check that out myself.
Yeah. It's not like something that you're going to be like vomiting, but it's something you're going to be like, geez, this motherfucker exists. Like he's a real person. Like he's not like a made up story. This is a real guy. So he's a
It's
sick.
interesting to have that insight into somebody's mindset and psyche.
Yeah, the psychology on all these, I mean, you can go into them. They all have fucked up childhoods. Not all of them, but a lot of them have fucked up childhoods or weird things happen to them in childhood, and a lot of them have head injuries as children. That's
Yes.
another thing. A lot of them have head injuries. Some of them have, like, their mother was injured. The kids have a brain in, like, maybe they got a concussion as a small child. And it snaps something. Maybe for a normal kid who gets something like that, no. But this kid has something mentally wrong with him a little bit. He's a little off anyway. Then he has this brain thing, and boom, this guy's a fucking psychopath because his mom, does something creepy, or he hates his mom or hates his dad for beating him or something. And he's like, deep down, something's brewing in him.
I had my first concussion at 10 years old.
Oh God, you're a serial killer.
All right, next round. Nick, who do you have to bring to the table for round number 3?
Well, since I'm down 0-2, I got to bring a heavy hitter to the table. So I'm bringing the Gray Man, a.k.a. the Werewolf of Wisteria, a.k.a. the Brooklyn Vampire, a.k.a. the Moon Maniac, a.k.a. the Boogeyman. And I'm talking about Hamilton Howard, a.k.a. Albert Fish.
Yeah.
Judas Priest. Who is it? What's his name?
Albert Fish. This is what we're going by.
Gotcha. The Fish Man. Let's hear it.
Yeah. This dude was possibly the sickest, most demented human being to ever walk the planet. He was a child rapist, a cannibal, and a serial killer. He once boasted that he had children in every state. And he also stated that the number was around 100. However, that is thinking he's referring to the rapes more than the murders. I think as far as murder convictions, he's only at like around 20. But he's definitely done a lot more than that. One of the more famous things is with Albert Fish is the letter that he sent describing the killing of one of his victims, Billy Gaffney, in which he talks about. You ready for this one, Quaid?
No.
He thought. He gagged the dude, and the 8-year-old boy. And he left him at a dump. He had him all tied up. And then he came back like the next day to find him there. He said, I cut one of my belts in half and slit it in 3 strips, about 8 inches long. I whipped his bare behind till his blood ran down his legs. I cut off his ears, his nose, and slit his mouth from ear to ear. Gouged out his eye. He was dead then. I stuck the knife in his belly and held my mouth to his body and drank his blood. Then he goes on to say they put him in like potato sacks, cut him up. Then he got home after that, and let's get down to this because this is when it really gets creepy. It hasn't got creepy yet. Okay. Anyway, he made a soup out of his ears and his nose, and he had a literal rump roast out of his ass because he cut his ass cheek off and took it home. And he talks about how he would, baste it from time to time to make sure it stayed a nice golden brown. The stew that he made out of the ears and nose, he also added onions, carrots, turnips, celery, and pepper. And then the roast, he put he cooked it for an hour. He poured a pint of water over it for the gravy, added the onions.
Listen, you don't have to give us the recipe.
I basted his behind with a wooden spoon so the meat would stay nice and juicy. In about 2 hours, it was nice and brown, cooked through. I never ate any roast turkey that tasted half as good as his sweet, fat little behind. I ate every bit of the meat for about 4 days. His little monkey was so sweet, nut, and his peewees. I could not chew, so I threw them in the toilet.
This is
So gross,
horrifying,
man.
dude.
Yeah, it was
Way
bad.
too much
I
detail.
know all this. Like I've done too much research. Yes, I was just waiting for you to say that last part. So creepy.
So creepy, dude. So creepy. What like time period, like decade is this?
He was, this is probably going to work against me, but you're talking like 20s.
Yeah.
Oh,
Don't let it work
Actually, even
against
earlier
you.
than that. It was around. It was more turn of the century. He died around the 30s. I thought
Yeah.
they put him to death quicker back then, but this is more
But
around the turn of the century.
don't let that work against him, Quaid, because that guy is a sicko. And I mean,
did he end up getting? So he obviously got caught, busted, locked up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh,
disgusting.
yeah. I'm speechless. Adam, go ahead.
Okay, I'll do one. I'll try to do it quick because I don't think I can compete. With the guys I have left, I'm not sure I can compete with Fish because he is a psychopath. Like, I mean, he's disgusting because he eats little kids and he loves it. I mean, he like brags about it in letters that are well documented. So,
Dude, the details of that, like this stew, that's awful.
yeah. So I'm gonna do another cannibal. Maybe not. Uh, it's a modern cannibal, Jeffrey Dahmer. I mean, he's obviously a rock star. Like you look at these lists, there's people on them that you would consider rock stars of serial killers. Like they're the ones every person knows. I guess is the way why I would call him a rock star because people know the name. They know, they know Dahmer, they know Bundy, they know, a lot of these guys. There's just Ramirez, the Night Stalker. I mean, they're regular guys, like modern serial killers, and people are aware of them. So basically, Jeffrey Dahmer, he grew up, seemed like a pretty normal kid, but he started getting into like hunting, like walking down the road and finding roadkill, and then he'd bring it back and dissect it. So he got really interested in animals and how their bodies work and their bones. He was like had this weird obsession with bones. So, he's growing up and he kind of realizes that he's gay. He's into men. So, for him, it wasn't something that you could openly talk about with people. It was kind of like this closeted thing. But like he
Did you
started,
have a hard time talking about it, Adam?
yeah, very hard. Still do. And I want to do the same thing that he ended up desiring. So basically,
Oh, jeez.
I'm kidding, but basically he like started to fantasize about men, but not just like dudes around hanging out having sex with them or something, but men being laying there sleeping and him sleeping with them. Like that was his thing, and them being there and never leaving him. So when he grows up, he starts killing people. He's picking up gay dudes at gay bars. He's picking up hitchhikers. He's doing all kinds of shit. But what he's trying to do is actually turn them into like he doesn't want them to ever leave. He keeps their bodies after he kills them, but he also starts injecting stuff into their head, trying to like make them like a gay sex robot zombie basically. Like that was what he like in his own words, he wanted like a sex zombie. Like, I mean, the guy, before he started really killing, he killed one person right after he graduated high school, but didn't really get into killing. Like, he took a man. What's that?
He never liked killing.
Well,
He was
I don't
also
know.
a product killer.
Like, he always says, oh, yeah, I don't remember. Because he had, he was a big drinker. He was always drunk. But that motherfucker liked to kill. He's a sick
Nah, he would get shit-faced drunk. He would try to turn him into a brain damaged zombie, basically. Like you were saying,
a couple of them.
And then, like when it got to the point where he just had to kill him, he would basically get blackout drunk and he'd kill him as soon as possible so he could get into fucking with the bodies.
I know you say that you don't think he liked it, but some of the guys who survived, they had been beaten and like choked and beaten, and they were bruised like head to toe. Like I think he liked beating, liked the delivering the pain to. But yeah, he's a sicko. Yeah, of course. So he's got gay bodies. He's got bodies all over his apartment. Gay bodies. Sorry, so insensitive. He's got heads in his refrigerator. He's got a vat of hydrochloric acid filled with as much human parts as he can.
Yeah.
And his neighbor, he lived in a rough neighborhood in Milwaukee, and his neighbor, she said she was a black lady. I only say that because of what she's about to say. So she says, yeah, Jeffrey never went shopping, and he always was cooking something that stunk. It smelled like grits. And I kind of laughed whenever I heard her say this because it was funny the way she said it. She reminded me of some, nice lady who's always in the kitchen. She's like, it smelled like grits. It has an awful smell whenever you're cooking it. That's what he smelled like. And he never went shopping. So it was this guy had bodies literally rotting away in his apartment, cooking away and doing all this stuff, and it was just stinking out the whole building. And these people were whatever, they had to live in this too. But he was you talked about the other guy, that Dahmer from England or whatever.
Yeah,
he did a lot of the same things. His first one, he killed, he boned him out, burned him up, broke the bones into little pieces. He melted him down, hydrochloric acid, flushed him down the toilet, just stuff like that. He's a creep. He stole a mannequin before he really killed people and jerked off all over it on a regular basis. And he was living with his grandma. He's an adult. He's 21, maybe 20. And she's
like our friend Mike.
Yeah, she was so creeped out by it. She's like, dude, you gotta get rid of that fucking mannequin. It's probably all crusty looking.
I think Mike's dad said the same thing to him.
Yeah. But that made him honestly, if she would just let him have that thing, he may not, I don't know, he may not have killed people, because once he didn't have that thing to jerk off on, he started going down a real dark path, killing dudes.
He just needed a mannequin, man. That's all he needed.
He would keep the dudes okay, he had a sexual type. They were long, thin dudes, were good looking. And
shit.
Yeah, exactly. Quaid, you're in trouble. So
prime target.
Yeah, he would get these people back, and he would Cosby them with something in their drink, get them all fucked up. He'd even do it at the bar, and they would be loopy, and he would get them out of the bar. But he literally, the guy, he said he was perfect. He cut his head off, kept his head in the fridge, and cut his dick and balls off, and kept that as well. It was like a mount of a dick.
You just need to find the right taxidermist to take it to.
Yeah, I don't know why I'm laughing. This is terrible, but I'm just saying, fish is they're both disgusting. They eat people, but
they're horrible people.
But they're horrible people. But
I like the one Dahmer neighbor. I don't know. It might have been the same woman, but she was like, I went over and sat on his couch. He gave me a sandwich. What did I eat?
What's funny about him is it seemed like people liked him. He was kind of a weird dude, but it seemed like people liked him, and he carried on. They had video of him at Thanksgiving. 1 year, he killed 13 people. And that Thanksgiving,
1 year?
Yeah, he went berserk.
Yeah, he did. In that year, he was hanging out with his family. They have him on video. I said VHS, but video. And he's just carrying a conversation, and the dad was like, "Geez, Jeff, your gram said you were getting thin, but you look really healthy and strong." He goes, "Yeah, I haven't really, I've just been eating McDonald's a lot." He blamed it on McDonald's. Meanwhile, he's eating
a lot of Irish guys.
Yeah. He's eating, a guy's named McDonald. Oh fuck. But he's a sicko. You know what's funny about this one, and I'm sure you guys probably remember. I remember whenever they found him, whenever they caught him. And it was holy cow, this guy's I was a kid, but it was this is a serial killer.
I remember seeing the freezers, the picture, the videos of the freezers with body parts in them.
Yeah, disgusting. Yeah, so he killed a bunch of people, 17 people, that they know of, and he's like I said, a famous serial killer, and it hit it's not guys didn't do worse than him, but he had it at a right time. Like that was whenever like everyone had been in a panic from serial killers throughout the whole 80s. Then like TV and 24-hour news was, not like big, but it was starting to come along. Like people were eating up these stories. And Jeffrey Dahmer was a big story.
Was eating up his victims.
Yeah. So he got sentenced to 937 years, another state without the death penalty. And he only spent a couple years in jail, and he ended up being murdered by other prisoners. I mean, they acted like he was like very religious and he turned to stone, but some of the other prisoners said, nah, he talked about murder and he talked about doing all this creepy shit. Like he loved it, So
yeah,
he probably is fake, but he was like, yeah, he's a pretty famous one.
Okay,
But,
so so this round is a tie simply because they're too similar for me. Well, I want to ask a couple questions before we move on. I don't feel comfortable picking one over the other here. I'm curious to know if you guys can tell me how many victims belong to each one of these guys.
yeah, Dahmer's 17. Now Fish, I'm not sure.
Like I said, Fish claims to have had up to 100. He was only convicted on 3, but I mean that was enough to get him the death penalty. But he claims
So back in that day, it was obviously a lot. Probably, I assume a lot more difficult to prove things. There was obviously no DNA testing or anything like that.
If this could push me over the top, there was one time when Albert Fish was evicted from an apartment, and before he left, he took a shit on the living room floor.
Dude, that's gangster shit right there.
It had a little baby finger in it.
Yeah.
Jeez. Now, you know how I can tell you're a sicko, Adam? You just thought of that and like on the fly with zero thought put into it.
I mean, these guys are cannibals. What are they shitting out? Whenever you have corn or something, they're shitting out like full fingernails.
You said a baby finger. Jesus.
But
all right. So,
yeah.
Where do we go from here? Adam, you're up next. What do you got for the next round?
Okay, I got 2 more that are pretty interesting. Interesting, but it's hard to do the research on 10 of these guys. Like me and Nick obviously put time into 5. We put our effort. We know about the other guys, but we put a lot of effort into 5. So, other one.
Done? Are you forfeiting?
Oh no, because I'm only on number 4.
Yeah, that's why I was confused why you were saying that at this point.
Well, I'm just saying, like,
you act like you're giving up.
To know the details of all these guys, it's a lot of information.
We're not going to be able to talk about the details of all of them, or we're going to be here for 3 more hours.
Yeah, well, maybe longer. So, anyways, I'll do the next one.
At this point, I don't even care who wins. I'm kind of fascinated and interested by these topics, to be honest with you. So whoever wins is going to be fine. I want to try to get through as many of these as we can, to be totally honest with you.
Yeah, let me bust through this guy. He's a good one, but I'm going to do Gary Ridgway. And Gary Ridgway was the Green River Killer. So he was like Tacoma, Seattle, Washington area. And in 1982, a bunch of, I think 5 prostitutes, like the bodies of 5 prostitutes, like showed up. Or maybe 2 of them, like right off the bat. I think that's what it was. They found 2 bodies in the Green River. So the investigators go down to, check it out. And while they're down there, like investigating these 2 bodies, they're literally start stumbling all over bodies. Like a whole, like, apparently there's just bodies all over the place. And basically that was just to how it started for Gary Ridgway. And then in 1983, they found another 14 bodies, but 23 of these prostitutes were missing, 23 additional. Then in 1984, 14 more bodies showed up. So they kept finding more and more bodies. I think what Gary did the first couple, he threw them in the river. And they floated and people found them. So what he started doing is putting them on the banks, of the river. It's a very thick, dense area. And he got into some really weird shit, but there's a really cool thing that happened with this story. So the investigators, they're years are going by. In 1986, they had 50 detectives working on this. Okay, by over the first 4 years, so many people were missing or found dead that they had every detective they had working on this case. So these two detectives, they went down and they met with Ted Bundy, who's on Nick's list. He's another legendary serial killer. Ted Bundy was actually from the same general area as this Green River Killer, where the bodies were being found. So Ted Bundy says to him, you guys, next time you find a fresh body, you shouldn't take it out of there. Leave it. He said, this guy is coming back there. The way he's staging these bodies, he started putting bodies in props all over them, in a weird way. And but the police weren't finding them fresh. They were finding they were pretty decomposed. But what Gary Ridgway was doing, he would basically pick up a prostitute. He would show her his ID and say, look, because all the prostitutes were very well aware of all these missing girls, this Green River Killer. He's like, here's my ID. And he had a picture. He did it on purpose of his little kid. When he opened up his wallet, you could see his ID, but you could see the little kid. He's like, look, I'm just a family guy. My wife, she doesn't have sex with me. I'm not a bad guy. And he said that their defenses just went right down and they just got in the car. And it was he said it worked every time.
Hold on. Let me write this down real quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I meant the trick.
That's what I know. I know. Creep. So they find tons of suspects. Tons of bodies. They can't figure it out. Gary Ridgway was one that came up a couple times. Someone saw him down there picking up prostitutes. He was linked to some of the girls. He had hooked up with them or something, or seen with them. And essentially, nothing happens. Literally, no one finds him. The state and the city cut the funding to this task force. They said they're spending too much money on this. All these people are coming up missing, and they literally cut it down to one guy was working. And then he ends up being promoted, and no one's working it. Literally, no one was working the case anymore. Here's a fucking... The guy ends up being probably the highest documented serial number of kills in U.S. history, modern U.S. history anyway. But they had tried to do DNA in the 90s, and it was pretty early on, and it didn't work. It just didn't. They didn't find anything. They weren't able to get a profile, and they kind of used up all of the DNA that they had found on the sites. And in 2001, they had a little bit better technology. A woman pulled, it was man juice off of a Q-tip that they'd taken from the scene, back in the day. And she ran it and found a DNA profile. And long story short, they end up figuring out that the profile was Ridgway, and he was one of the suspects originally, but really no one followed up on it because they all of a sudden all their manpower disappeared and they had so many people to run down. So this guy from 1982, and he didn't get arrested until 2001. I know that he went nuts. He killed the first 3 or 4 years. He must have killed. He admitted to killing 71, and he was found guilty of 47. But there's a lot of bodies they didn't find. He ended up a couple of years ago. He came out and was talking to the news. He's like, "Look, there are dozens and dozens more. I kill way more than that. I'm just being honest because there's nothing that it doesn't matter for him. He gets 48 life sentences. He can't get the death penalty in that state either. But
he only killed prostitutes.
Only killed prostitutes. He had a really weird sexual hang up. He just was a weird sexual, a guy who was weird. Basically, what happened was he was in Nam, and he got gonorrhea from a hooker in Nam, and from that point on, he hated hookers, and then he came back and he started, you know, I mean, his hatred obviously grew to the point where he started killing them, but he was having sex with them too. His three things that he said were, okay, can I have sex with this girl? Like when he talked to Hooker. Can I kill this girl? And can I get away with it? That were his three things. If they were all three yes, he did it. That's it. That's all it took for him to do it.
He got off on all three of them.
Yeah, basically.
That's crazy.
That's not even the sickest part. You know, Ted Bundy said that he's coming back to visit these bodies. Well, he wasn't just coming back to visit them. He was coming back to actually have sex with them. And they even said that he, as in his words, he said he had to like scrape the maggots off them at times to do it. So, I mean, yeah. And someone said, well, look, there's obviously a lot of hookers in like that SeaTac area, like in Seattle, where like it's like a rough area between Seattle and Tacoma, a lot of hookers. Why didn't you just, if you wanted sex, why would you have sex with a dead body? And he was like, well, for one, I don't have to pay it. And for two, it's already dead. Like, I mean, it was like, it made sense to him. For anyone. Yeah. He's like, oh my God. Like, just the way people think are just like.
And it would blow his mind that you would have to ask him that question because it was so simple to him.
Yeah. Like, duh.
He's like, obviously, duh.
Wow. All right, Nick, what do you had to go up against the Green River Monster?
All right. The Green River Killer. That's a good nickname, but so is the Pig Farmer Killer, the Pig-Headed Killer, and Pork Chop Rob. That's a pretty cool name. That's also a good barbecue place name. Go to Pork Chop Rob's. Robert Pickton. He is a Canadian serial killer out of the Vancouver area. And he's been convicted of 6 murders, but he has confessed to 49. Actually, when he was caught by the cops, he said, I really wanted to get one more in and go for that even 50. It's fucked up, but like sometimes you gotta laugh. You gotta laugh in dark areas. But he also liked to kill the prostitutes. That was his go-to. And the Vancouver cops at the time really didn't put a lot of thought into missing prostitutes because they're kind of a victim that nobody gives a shit about overall. So like serial killers that go after the prostitutes could get away with it for a while. His disposal methods were interesting. He owned a pig farm. Now, mind you, he owned a pig farm in a slaughterhouse, and you know he sold meat. That it was very successful. He was a millionaire. This dude had plenty of money. I think I mentioned when we did the top bands episode, Nickelback, when they were coming up, played at the Picton farm.
Oh, I do remember you talking about that. Yeah.
Quaid's
these guys, yeah, you know, not my favorite, but
no, I say Quaid's, but yeah,
Quaid's
used to.
But I was trying to argue their case because of their success. But whatever, that's neither here nor there. Some of his disposal methods were the obvious: feed him the pigs and whatever. But he would also grind his victims up with the meat that he was selling to the public.
Like sausage.
So they actually had to issue a health advisory. When was this? I believe it was on March 10th, 2004. They had to release a health advisory that if you bought meat from the Picton farm, or meat that was processed at the Picton farm, you might be eating people's.
Oh man, dude, that's one thing I can deal with all these serial killers. Don't mess with my food. I don't want to hear about it.
Get that Bob Evans sausage. Didn't realize you're eating Bob and Evan.
Yeah, no kidding. Ugh. Yeah, it's gross.
So listen, I'm not picking any more winners or losers. We're just going to discuss a couple more. Like I'm I'm done like acting like I could pick like one that's better or worse than the other. So this this is whatever you want to call it. Call the whole episode a tie or a wash. We got a couple more to talk about, but I'm not gonna judge these people anymore. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've judged them, but I've also judged both of you equally as much, and it can't be healthy for me to judge you any more than I already have tonight.
Yeah. Can't be healthy to know this much about serial killers. But
Oh,
we do.
exactly. You got a couple more you want to talk about?
Yeah, I tell you what, I have a couple cool ones. I mean, not cool. I mean, just weird things. Not so much argue them. Just quick little facts. So there's a guy. There's a couple guys that are called the Casanova Killer, but one of them's name was Glenn Rogers, and he's on my list. And Glenn Rogers was on like a. He was kind of a wild guy. He was killed women, and but he did it like he was a killer, but he was also kind of like guy who did it for money too. Like he was killing people, robbing them, or killing. And he did kill them if he had, like, he would have sex with the girl, kill him. But they call him the Casanova Killer because he'd pick up women like drinking at the bar and take them home and kill them, or take them somewhere and kill them. But the thing that's not fascinating about him. That makes him just an average serial killer. The thing that's fascinating about him is just prior to O.J. Simpson or Nicole Brown Simpson and Ronald Goldman being murdered. This guy is working for O.J. Simpson. And according to him, so here's another thing. At all of his murder sites, he leaves a broken watch. Like whenever he dumps a body, he like steps on a watch and leaves a broken watch so you can see when he left it. It's like a weird hallmark of his. So he's working. He just so happens to be working for O.J. Simpson at the time of the Nicole Brown Simpson murders. And according to him and what he said, he was doing maintenance around OJ's house. And OJ, I don't think knew he was like a serial killer, but knew he was like a rough and tough kind of guy. Like kind of like the guys he broke into that Vegas hotel room with, like some muscle, So he's getting a divorce with Nicole, and he wants these diamonds and jewelry back from her. So he sends over the Casanova Killer, doesn't know he's the Casanova Killer, to get him. And he said, they're not there. She was supposed to be at this event, and OJ was there, and this guy was going to rob her basically while she was gone. So he comes back, and OJ's like, well, I don't give a fuck. We're going over there, and you're getting them. He's like, okay. So they go over there, and according to him, he basically, and he had done it before, cut people's heads like basically completely off with a knife. And that's basically what he did. And according to him, he stole the 2 gloves that he wore off of OJ. Those are OJ's gloves. Like, he could deny it all at once, but he actually was the one who used them. And he said that he actually got blood somehow during the whole thing because OJ was there too. Like, he was kind of waiting in the in the winds or whatever they say. Yeah. And whenever he came, he like accidentally cut OJ on his hand. Like on purpose, like he tried to set OJ up. Like that's what this guy says. So that seems like a fishy story because it's like you're chasing, he's
just admit it. Yeah, if you're OJ, just be like, dude, it was this fucking guy.
Well, OJ took him there. Like it was OJ's guy. It was like OJ's hitman, basically. So, anyway, so they basically get the jewelry back or some of the jewelry back, but obviously it's a panic situation because they just murdered 2 people, cut their heads completely off. And this guy eventually goes back to Florida, where he's from. He gets caught, more serial murdering. And goes on trial. And his mom is sitting in... It's funny because they have pictures of this. His mom's sitting in the audience wearing the exact same necklace that this picture of Nicole Brown Simpson she was wearing. So basically, he took that necklace and gave it to his mom, and she was wearing it during his murder trial. It was Nicole Brown Simpson's necklace. I mean, it's 100%. It's not like a regular necklace. It had like a very unique thing, hanging from it. So basically, that guy was probably involved in the O.J. Simpson, Ronald Goldman and Nicole Brown Simpson murder. And they said Ronald Goldman was like a black belt. Like he wasn't like just like some, he could handle himself a bit. But this guy was a big guy. And they said the next day, because this guy worked for OJ, but he also had another job. The guy called off work, and his face was all fucked up. Like someone kicked him in the face, like potentially broke his nose, and like his eyes were all swollen up. Like he had been beaten up basically, or in a fight the night before, like the same night that the murders happened. So I mean, I'm kind of convinced that the guy was involved to some degree.
And there was a second shoe print.
Yeah. So it's
In
sorry.
OJ, it would make sense that OJ, you know, theoretically speaking, if that is true what you're saying, OJ was so heavily involved that he couldn't just point the blame. He has to deny everything.
Yeah, and I mean, he did the same thing in Las Vegas. He gets up some
Right.
muscle, goes and gets his shit back. Well,
Right.
I mean, muscle he got the first time was a fucking serial killer. Like he legitimately was a serial killer. A little too much muscle.
Yeah.
So
Well, tone down the muscle there, buddy.
This guy's name is what? Gary Ridgway?
No, that's Glenn Rogers. Gary Ridgway was the Green River guy.
Oh, yeah. Glenn Rogers. I didn't look into that.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Oh, yeah. And so there was a watch at the scene smashed and like left on the side.
Yeah, I'm gonna look into this too. I never heard that story. That's freaking awesome.
That's the first time I've ever heard of that. That's super interesting because I've always been infatuated with the OJ story in general. I think probably because it's during our lifetime.
Yeah. But that's like, honestly, I didn't hear about this guy until maybe like 2 or 3 years ago. Never even heard of him. I mean, he's dead now.
Yeah.
They could have had all this information. They didn't even it was almost like the investigators were just like, you know what, let's not bring this up anymore. They was like, put this guy away and we'll just forget about the whole Nicole Brown thing.
Right. That's super interesting, actually.
That's very cool.
Nick, do you have anybody on your list that's interesting? Obviously, you do.
A couple of the ones I didn't cover. I mean, Jack the Ripper was the original serial killer. That's the first one. Also, something interesting was the Mary Kelly murder was the first time they used photography at the crime scene, like crime scene photography. And that was a fucked up crime scene to take a picture of. His kill, his body count was really low, unless he was H.H.Holmes. Then it was pretty, that just extends that one. But the brutality in which he killed, and in the time frame that he would actually, from like last seen to found dead, would be like, I think the one murder was like 5 minutes, and he just totally butchered her. So I mean, he was a very savage killer. Carl Panzeram, he is a prime example of why you don't give prisoners hard labor, because all this dude was like in and out of the system, and when he would go to jail, he'd get like these jobs where he'd be like carrying ridiculously heavy boulders for like 16 hours a day. The dude got fucking jacked, and he used that to
and angry.
Yeah, jacked and angry. And when he got out, he raped over 1,000 boys and young men and murdered all over 30, I think.
Yeah. Well, another one that I have that's like these foreign serial killers. That's like, I was thinking of him like whenever I was talking about Lopez. But there's another one. I mean, it's almost like the identical story to Lopez. His name is Garavito, and they call him the Beast. And he basically murdered, they think, around, well, they know of 138 boys, like young boys.
Jeez.
And he was a real sicko. Like he started raping them, then he started raping, then murdering them. Then he started, like, it was a sexual sadism. So like the more pain he caused to these kids while he's having sex with them, the more better it was for him. So then he started like killing them while he's actually having sex with them. Then he started disemboweling them while they're alive, while he's having sex with them. So I mean, like, the guy's like this is the whole, like, it's just like a building, like more like they can't get enough. Yeah, it just escalates. Yeah, good word for it. But basically, in Colombia, it's right after the 50-year Civil War, and I mean, people are like, I mean,
Well, yeah,
Dude,
wars
poor.
actually bring out a lot of serial killers. Like I guess there were a lot of serial killers during World War II that like basically just went unknown.
Yeah. Oh
Because
yeah.
like it created this like perfect opportunity where they could just mass murder people that in a way that fit their own sick, most likely sexual needs.
Yeah.
Uh,
So not to
go.
like, but just like another really the cool thing that Quaid will like, especially since there's like a convoy of people coming here, probably Pedro Lopez, and
Yeah.
within the next year, this guy is up for parole.
For real?
Yeah, and they think he killed. They're pretty certain that he killed around the 300 people. So there's got two guys who've killed over 300 people, and sometime within the next year, this guy's gonna be free too.
Well, they're not coming up here. It's too cold up here.
They're coming up in that convoy with all those people.
No. I'll kill them.
The last one I added on my list was the Golden State Killer.
Yeah, because he's a recent.
Yeah, he didn't do his murders recently.
Yeah,
like the dude, he's been dormant for like 30 years almost.
Yeah, he's an old man.
Yeah, he's 76 now. Like,
yeah, but
he's
did you
living with his daughter and his grandkid?
Yeah, did you know he was a fucking cop?
Yeah,
when he was a serial killer.
The crazy thing about him, aside from him being a cop, one of the Boston Stranglers also had police. Did a little police work too, I think. Or maybe not. Maybe it was the Hollywood Hill. I don't know. Which one was it that they did the duo? Was it the Boston? They had the two of them.
Well, there's like the Hillside Stranglers, but I don't think either
Stranglers. That's
I don't know if either of them were cops or not. I can't remember.
But the thing about this guy, what was his name? I forget. I had it earlier.
Oh yeah, I forget.
Oh, it's right here. Hold on.
Their nicknames are more famous than their actual names.
Yeah, East Side Area Rapist was another one of his nicknames. But the way he got caught was not him, but one of his relatives. It might not even be like a close relative. It could be like a cousin or
someone just has some of his genetic makeup.
Yeah. Submitted their DNA to like 23andMe or Ancestry.com.
Yeah.
That's how they found the DNA to link it back to him.
Yeah, what they're doing, this was actually just on 60 Minutes. Did you see that Sunday?
I didn't. Like, apparently it was awesome.
They just did this whole thing. I mean, and I had heard about this stuff, but they have found like 13 like cold case. I don't know if they're all serial murders, but like what's happening is like Quaid submits his DNA to 23andMe, and then he finds a couple relatives and an ex-girlfriend's probably a relative of his, and and so then the cops are like, they have this open site where you can just search for relatives. Well, the cops aren't searching for relatives; they're putting in DNA profiles of like these murderers who they have a DNA profile. They just don't have the guy, and they're finding family. And then they lead it back to there's been like 13 of them, like within the last couple of years of like these are like unsolved crimes or serial killers or shit like that. It's crazy.
That's crazy. I was thinking about that as you guys were talking about some of these earlier. It almost seems impossible that anybody will ever be added to this list again, like from this point moving forward in time.
That's what you like to think, so you can go to sleep.
No, but seriously, well, yeah, that too. But realistically, it's nearly impossible to get away with stuff over and over and over again.
Kind of like how in the 70s and 80s, the serial killer was I don't want to say the thing, but like was the outburst. The serial being a serial killer was the release of the evil. Nowadays, it's the mass murder.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. But there's no expectation of getting away with it anymore.
No, I don't think so.
Remember, there was the
like Adam said, it is believed that there's like 200 to 300 active ones out there today.
Yeah, man,
just plotting, waiting, knocking on your window. giving treats to your dog, so when he breaks in your house and rapes you and murders you, the dog doesn't attack him.
The
You
dog
remember
just,
the what they call him, the Washington sniper or something, the DC
yeah,
sniper?
DC stuff.
Yeah,
Like
that kid fucking
that
crazy.
that was one of the first ones that I, can remember being like a real big news story in this modern day.
Yeah, I mean, that one, Ted Kaczynski, Unabomber, those guys all fall under the serial killer category. I mean, they do.
Yeah.
I mean, Ted Kaczynski is an oddball,
He's
but
a terrorist, though. He's more of a terrorist than a serial killer.
I know, but they still classify him as like, I mean, well, I still see him on lists.
Classification.
I mean,
I
I
think that's
agree
wrong
with you.
classification. He had a political motive, therefore he's a terrorist.
Well,
Yeah, what
you could
was
say
the-
the DC snipers did too.
The Unabomber wasn't the Unabomber's thing something about like he wanted to stop technology from advancing at such a rapid pace or something like that?
He was afraid of Skynet.
Yeah.
Like, Tommy can kill you.
Actually, he may be right, and we'll find out in the end.
Connor. Yeah.
After I saw that Atlas, that robot running around, running like
Yeah, doing the
looking like
American
Usain Bolt. Yeah. I'm like, oh shit, Ted Kaczynski was right. No, that's funny though. But the other ones I had, Richard Ramirez, he's the Night Stalker. You know, he had the pentagrams on his hands. He basically raped and murdered people in California. California, if you look into serial killing in the late 70s, early 80s, California, that's why they have East Side Oakland Strangler, because there were so many fucking people out there serial killing at that time. Like, it was like there were like 100 of them in California. And I mean, honestly, some of the sickest ones, we didn't even put them on the list, but they're like all in the same area of California. Like,
well, look at California now. It's a bunch of fucking nutcases.
Yeah, it's true. They're probably doing it now too. They're just not recognizing them as serial killers.
Yeah.
I had Ed Gein. Ed Gein is basically a guy. I mean, the thing about Ed Gein is they're not really sure how many people he killed.
Like, I think it's only two, isn't it? He only has 2 confirmed kills. So. He was a necrophiliac, and he was a grave.
Yeah, he was a grave robber, and he's basically where the story of like, he's kind of based on Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you know, some of these like Psycho is based off of him because he was obsessed with his mom. So I mean, he was like a legendary character, but he's not like a big kill guy, and he was a really odd dude. Like, everyone always said it; they all knew him. It was just like your local town guy, but like he was digging up freshly graved bodies and like
making lampshades out of them.
Yeah, doing weird shit with their skin.
Yeah, and like he made a cereal bowl out of a skull, and
yeah, like he was fucked up, and he had real weird mommy issues. Then I have David Berkowitz, which is son of Sam. Kind of touched on him last week. He's the guy who would, I mean, he was crazy as shit, but he would go up to people in their cars and shoot them while they're getting down and dirty. And then Ed Kemper. He's a very interesting one. There's a lot of interviews of Ed Kemper telling his stories, like how he did it. But he like, I think he killed his fucking grandparents when he was like a kid. Like, I think he murdered his grandparents, but his mom like did weird shit to him. And
are you thinking Jerry Brudos?
Maybe I'm mixing them up.
You're thinking Jerry Brudos. Jerry Brudos was when they killed his grandmother and then came back, and he eventually killed his mom and then fucked her dead skull.
I think Ed Kemper did that. I think
Ed Kemper was the one that killed the encyclopedia salesman, and he like
that was that guy on Making of a Murder.
No,
I'm being funny, dude.
Yeah. No, Ed Kemper killed the encyclopedia girl, and then I'm pretty sure he's the one that had he had basically the murder shed, and he had a wife and a family, they knew nothing about it. Like, they were completely, deer in the woods with him.
Ed Kemper killed his grandparents and his mother.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh, then I screwed it up.
Hey,
he was also 6'9". He could pretty much kill anybody he wanted to.
Yeah, he's a huge dude. He's a pretty big character on that show, Mindhunter.
Yeah, I thought that was Jerry Brutus.
No, I think
Jerry
they talked.
Brutus was the guy that I'm talking about.
Jerry Brutus is the guy with the women's shoes. He would turn his garage into like a photo thing, but then he would get these girls convinced that he was like gonna take pictures of them. Then he would like bind and torture them. But let me tell you, I forgot to tell you this. Gary Ridgway. This is like when you're raising children. I don't have any, but if you're raising them, you have to be very careful with how you treat children. Apparently, especially if you never know. But Gary Ridgway pissed the bed until he was 13, and every time he did, his mom insisted on washing his genitals. That has to have a serious psychological issue.
Yeah, that's.
Oh fuck! Yeah, that's crazy.
Wait, did that have any effect on you?
I mean, I have no comment about this part of the show.
Who else I have? And Ed Kemper is my last one. So yeah, that's pretty much my list. Bunch of freaking nut jobs.
Then I had Ted Bundy, which he was the co-ed killer. Adam covered him a little bit last week, and he was
another rock star.
But he became really famous with the trial. He actually represented himself because he was a pretty talented lawyer, up and coming lawyer. And
he was a smart guy.
Yeah. And I believe the judge even told him, like, look, if you didn't have this issue, you probably would have made a really good lawyer.
The thing about Ted Bundy was, okay, he defended himself, so they had to give him access to the law library in the courthouse. And he actually had been caught multiple times, and he had escaped from jail multiple times and went on to kill and kill and kill. He's the one who went into a sorority house and literally bludgeoned every girl like that he could find to death and raped them.
Yeah.
Like the dude he couldn't help himself. That was on the campus of Florida State. It wasn't like, it was like, that's like huge. I mean, the guy was a psychopath, but he escaped from jail multiple times. He's a serial killer, and you can let him go. Oh, fuck.
Oh, man, I love this politics, but, man, not a good guy.
Yeah. Yeah, no kidding.
Well, a lot of these guys really, you see a pattern of highly intelligent people on these lists. Really, as sick and twisted as they are, a lot of them are very, very intelligent people.
Yeah, they're all a little off.
I mean, the crazy thing is when you look at Ted Bundy, I mean, he is very intelligent, very smart. He was lined up for a career where he was going to make a lot of money, good-looking guy, really could have had any woman that he probably wanted.
Sounds like he could have had you if he played his cards right.
If he kept her alive. No, I mean, let's be serious. The dude seriously could have had his pick of the litter. He didn't have to murder them to fuck them.
Yeah, he would come to a lake that was like in that Seattle, Washington area, Tacoma, whatever. There was like a lake. Everyone went and like hung out and sunbathed in the summer. And he would wear a splint on his arm with a fake cast. And he'd be like, hey, he would go up to all these young hot girls. He liked them like 16 to 18, all dark hair. Like he had a type. He was this is my type guy. Like I remember we talked about that when we were kids. Like, oh my God, these people are after dark-haired women or blondes. Or he was that guy, and he would say, "Hey, is there any way you could come help me? I have to get my boat on top of my car, and obviously my arm's screwed up." And they used it in Silence of the Lambs still.
Yeah,
move
this couch with me.
Yeah, so he would get him back to the car, and then he wouldn't even attack him. He would say, and they go, "Where's your boat?" And he's like, "Oh, it's right up the street at my house. I want to put it on my thing and bring it here." And they're like, "Oh man." They're like, "All right." So they'd get there, then he would get them. Like he literally was doing this. He was like going, picking up girls, bringing them back, and he had been killing them. But then he captured one, went and captured another one, made the one watch him have sex while he raped one, and then raped the other one, made him watch, and then like murdered them while they watched. It was just like he had an insatiable desire to kill people. Like when he went off the range, when it snapped on him, he couldn't help but kill everyone. And he
How many people did he kill?
No, I'm not
He had
sure.
a pretty big. He had a pretty big number.
His was all girls too, right?
Oh yeah, they were like he loved those. Wasn't it dark haired girls?
Yeah. Yeah, and dude,
Like parted down the middle.
my Google search list today is just really despicable.
Yeah, I know. My YouTube, I'm gonna be getting suggested serial killer
Right.
sicko videos for the next stream. My head like literally hurts from listening to this. Like, okay, like I am a cat. Like, I mean, I know a lot about these guys anyway, but like to actually do research to try to like, oh yeah, like here's a couple notes on the guy. It's like my head hurts, like from thinking about this stuff, and like it's all like I have playing in the like a podcast and shit. It's like too much. I'm like
Yeah,
warped.
I agree. I didn't do any research in that, and I agree. It's way too much.
Yeah,
His body count was they listed as 30 plus
yeah.
on Wikipedia.
But I mean,
I
he
have
killed
no
people
idea.
in Washington. He killed people in Colorado, Utah, Florida. I mean, he's all over the place. They
Wow.
think he went to Florida because part of him wanted to be caught, and Florida had the death penalty, and he wanted to go someplace where he could get the death penalty. But he was kind of crazy. He fought it too, and then I don't know. He was a crazy
He
person.
enjoyed the spectacle. Also, another narcissist. He proposed to his future wife while she was on the witness stand.
For real?
Yeah,
Wow.
said yes. Obviously,
Yeah.
Wow, I should have gave her the death penalty too.
Well, there's.
I almost put Kathleen Warnos on my list. Another Florida serial killer.
You mean Eileen Warnos?
Yeah, Eileen Warnos. Yeah.
Okay, I wanted to bring her up because I don't like her. I don't think she's a serial killer. I think she's a prostitute who ends up just getting sick and tired of being raped and, you know.
Is that
fucked for
Charlize
money.
Theron movie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think she just started shooting. Like, she was a murderer. You'd call her a serial killer, but all she did was she was robbing people. Like, I mean, she was just killing them. Like, I don't think, you know, like some of these guys, yeah, they kill for money, but I think a lot of these guys that we're talking about wanted to kill people. I don't know. I'm not saying she's not a serial killer, but
Yeah.
she's just like, to me, she gets so much credit because she's a woman. But there are some serious, Carol Bundy, serious serial killers, and like, they're like
Yeah.
sickening shit. And I just think like her, she just like got it in her head that she's defending herself from these men who are gonna take advantage of her. So
She did convince herself that she was like a hero.
Yeah, exactly. She's a mental person. One other cool thing, Quaid, if you want to ever look it up, the happy face killer. Did you ever hear this, Nick? This is
No.
one people should be aware of too. So around college campuses all over the country, and I mean Pitt, Duquesne, you know, there's a lot of colleges in Pittsburgh, and there's Three Rivers. So, you know, it seems like every year someone's coming up missing. They find them in the river. Yeah. So basically, the happy face killer is all over the country. They find, you know, like on college campuses mostly, you know, these like, you know, college age men end up missing. They end up finding them in a body of water somewhere near where they find them. There is a happy face spray painted, like not right on the body, but like in the area. Now, I mean, there's like hundreds of people dead all over the country, and they have found happy faces sprayed close by. Now, whether it's just a coincidence or people just spray paint happy faces whenever they're graffitiing, or if there's some link, who knows? It's crazy. They're not sure if it's a person or if it's a group of people or like a, you know,
this is a modern day thing.
Yeah, like as of now. Yeah.
Wow.
So.
That freaks me out because there's a smiley face out on my porch.
How many fucking bodies do you have in your pond right by the house?
Okay, let's wrap this up. Do you guys have anybody else you want to talk about? I think we pretty much covered everybody.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't cover everybody, but we covered enough for tonight.
Yeah, no
right.
Kidding.
Covered enough to give me nightmares for the rest of the week. All right, guys. Well, if you're still listening, God bless you, and may you find some peace at some point in your life. You're not gonna find it here. Happy Halloween coming up next week. We got one more show. It's going to be on Halloween Eve. So stay tuned.
Devil's
Find
Night.
out what we're going to talk about. I hope it's not anything close to as terrifying as tonight. Maybe we'll do like top 10 Smurf characters or something like that.
Yeah, something fun.
Yeah. All right, guys, check us out on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher. Our website is kellydigitalpodcast.com. I am your host, Quaid McDade, signing off.